The Mindset of the Unstoppable Part 1. Start before you feel ready. The rain had just stopped when Ethan Brooks stepped out of his small apartment in Ohio, a notebook tucked under his arm and a dream burning quietly inside him. He was 29, broke, and tired of watching his life pass by like a movie he didn't star in. For months, Ethan had told himself he'd start his own business. Someday, when he had more money. Someday, when he felt ready. Someday, when life gave him a sign. But that morning, something shifted. He remembered a quote he'd once read by Napoleon Hill. "Do not wait. The time will never be just right." Those words hit him harder than any motivational speech ever could. He looked around his one-room apartment, the peeling wallpaper, the squeaky chair, the pile of unpaid bills, and realized something powerful. Waiting for perfect conditions had become his biggest excuse. That day, Ethan decided to start, even though he didn't feel ready. The decision that changed everything. Ethan didn't have investors, fancy software, or even a proper desk. What he did have was an idea: to help small-town restaurants create websites and reach more customers online. He didn't know how to code. He didn't know how to market. He didn't even know where to begin. But he began anyway. He walked into a local diner with a trembling voice and a heart that pounded like a drum. "I can help you get more customers," he told the owner. "I don't have a company yet, but I can build you a simple website, and if you don't like it, you don't pay." The diner owner looked skeptical but smiled. "All right, kid. Show me what you've got." That one moment, that small, uncertain yes, became the seed of Ethan's future success. What Napoleon Hill would have said. Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich, taught that faith is the starting point of all achievement. Not money. Not luck. Not education. Faith, the belief that what you desire will come to life when you act on it. Ethan didn't know it then, but by acting before he felt ready, he had stepped into the very mindset Hill called the definite chief aim, a clear purpose combined with unwavering belief. Every successful person, Hill said, first wins in the mind before they win in the world. Ethan's first website wasn't perfect. It crashed twice. The design looked plain. But the diner got more orders, and word spread. Within 3 months, 2 more restaurants hired him. He was learning by doing, and that's how all great success begins. The myth of ready: most people wait. They wait for clarity, courage, or permission. But Hill reminded us that waiting is the dream killer. He once said, "Don't wait. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand, and work with whatever tools you may have at your command." Ethan didn't have the best tools, but he had motion. And motion creates momentum. He started waking up at 5 a.m., working before his day job. He watched free tutorials, practiced at night, and made 100 mistakes. Each failure was a teacher in disguise. There were moments he doubted himself, especially when his laptop broke or clients disappeared without paying. But every time, he remembered what Hill wrote about: the invisible forces that reward persistence. Hill said, "Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." So Ethan kept going. The lesson of the baby steps. Think of a baby learning to walk. The baby doesn't wait until it feels ready. It simply tries, falls, and tries again, laughing through the process. Ethan adopted the same mindset. Every failure became proof that he was still in the game. He stopped saying, "I'll start when I'm ready." Instead, he asked, "What can I do with what I have right now?" That question changed everything. He started making short videos about small business marketing. He posted them online, nervous and imperfect. His first few videos got almost no views. But one day, a cafe owner from another town saw his video and reached out. Soon after, Ethan landed a $2,000 contract, more money than he'd ever made in a single week. And just like that, the dream he'd delayed for years began to unfold. Why acting creates confidence. Here's something Napoleon Hill understood deeply: confidence doesn't come before action, it grows because of it. Ethan learned that lesson firsthand. The more he acted, the braver he became. The more mistakes he made, the smarter he grew. Confidence, he discovered, isn't about knowing the outcome, it's about trusting yourself to handle whatever comes next. Within a year, Ethan had 10 clients. Within 2, he had his own small digital agency. His friends called him lucky. But Ethan knew it wasn't luck. It was the decision to start before he felt ready, the decision to believe in himself even when doubt whispered louder. Napoleon Hill's secret principle. Hill often said there are two kinds of people in this world: those who are controlled by fear, and those who use fear as fuel. Fear will always be there. The difference between winners and warriors is simple. Winners act anyway. Ethan didn't eliminate fear. He just learned to move through it. When he faced rejection, he reminded himself of Hill's words. Every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent success. He wrote those words on a sticky note and placed it above his desk. Every time he wanted to quit, he read it aloud. The unstoppable mindset. By the third year, Ethan's business was thriving. He had a small team, loyal clients, and a quiet confidence that radiated from within. But the biggest change wasn't in his bank account. It was in his mindset. He no longer saw problems as punishments. He saw them as puzzles. He no longer waited for perfect timing. He made his own. He no longer asked, "What if I fail?" but instead, "What if I fly?" That's the mindset of those who cannot lose. That's the mindset Napoleon Hill spent his life teaching. Ethan realized that success isn't about talent, luck, or timing. It's about faith, persistence, and action, especially when you don't feel ready. A message to you: you don't need to be fearless. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to begin, right now, with what you have, where you are. Because the secret is this: readiness comes after you start, not before. As Napoleon Hill said, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. So take that first small step, today. Start before you feel ready, and watch how life begins to rise to meet your belief. Why heavy checkmark? End of part 1. Start before you feel ready. Next, part 2. How to turn setbacks into stepping stones. Would you like me to continue and write part 2, 1,000 words? Treat every setback as a lesson. Story in the same Napoleon Hill storytelling style. Next. The mindset of the unstoppable. Part 2. Speak like success is already yours. It was a chilly morning in Chicago when Maya Torres stood in front of her mirror, clutching a cup of coffee and whispering 3 quiet words. "I will win." She didn't shout them. She didn't post them on social media. She just said them, slowly, clearly, like a promise to herself. At that moment, she wasn't a best-selling author, or a business owner, or even particularly confident. She was an ordinary woman who had spent years talking herself out of her dreams. For most of her life, Maya's sentences began with, "Maybe someday," or "I wish." "Maybe I'll start my bakery one day." "Someday I'll write that book." "I wish I had the courage to try." Each time she said those words, her dreams moved a little further away, like fog slipping out of reach. But something changed the night she reread Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. She stopped at one line that felt like it was written just for her. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Hill didn't say whatever the mind can wish for. He said conceive and believe, meaning you must first speak your dream as if it already lives inside you. That night, Maya made a decision. She would change her words, and therefore, her world. Words shape worlds. The next morning, she looked in the mirror and replaced "I wish" with "I will." "I will open my bakery. I will learn everything about pastries. I will build a life I love." Something powerful happened inside her brain. She felt her posture straighten, her voice grow stronger, her energy rise. When you speak with confidence, your brain starts working to make your words true. And Maya began to see this firsthand. She walked through her day differently. When people asked, "So what do you do?" she no longer said, "Well, I work at a cafe, but someday I'd like to open my own." Instead, she said, "I'm opening my own bakery soon." At first, it felt like a lie, but with each repetition, her confidence grew. Her mind began building plans, not doubts. Napoleon Hill would have smiled at her transformation, because he taught that words backed by belief become living forces. He wrote, "Whatever you plant in the subconscious mind and nourish with repetition and emotion will one day become reality." The 2 sentences that change everything. Try this, Hill would say. "Maybe someday I might try to write a book. I am writing a book." Feel the difference? The first is weak. It gives your mind permission to delay. The second is strong. It commands your mind to create. Maya experienced this firsthand. Once she started saying, "I am building my bakery," her brain immediately began finding ways to do it. She noticed an empty storefront near her bus stop. She met a retired baker who became her mentor. She found affordable kitchen equipment on sale. It was as if the universe was responding to her new vocabulary. Hill called this the law of autosuggestion, the idea that what you repeatedly say and believe begins to shape your circumstances. Maya didn't know the science behind it, but she felt its truth. In her bones. Speak it until you see it. Every morning, Maya created a ritual. She'd stand before her mirror, touch her notebook, and say out loud, "I will open my bakery. People will love my pastries. I will make my dream real." At first, her roommate laughed. "Talking to yourself now?" she teased. But within weeks, Maya's mindset transformed. She walked taller. Her hesitation faded. She began to sound like someone destined to win. Hill believed that the moment you speak with conviction, you awaken something powerful within, the definite major purpose. He wrote, "You are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul, because you have the power to control your thoughts." Maya was taking command of her own ship. The power of confident conversation. One Friday night, Maya was at a community event when a man asked what she did for work. Without thinking, she replied, "I own a bakery." For a moment she froze. The words had come out naturally, but something magical followed. The man smiled and said, "Really? I work with small business loans. Maybe I can help." Within a month, Maya secured funding for her bakery, all because she spoke her dream boldly, not timidly. Hill would have called this a demonstration of the mastermind principle, the idea that when you share your dream with others confidently, you attract the right people to help make it real. Amelia Earhart's lesson. Maya often thought about Amelia Earhart, one of her heroes. Amelia didn't whisper her dreams, she declared them. When people said, "Women can't fly," she said, "Watch me." When they said, "It's too dangerous," she said, "Danger is part of discovery." Her words carried conviction, and conviction carries power. Because she spoke boldly, others began to see her as a pioneer, not a dreamer, and she proved them all wrong, flying across the Atlantic and into history. Maya realized she needed to speak about her dream like Amelia spoke about flight, as if it were already happening. Protect your words, protect your dream. Not everyone will believe in you. When Maya first told her coworkers she was opening a bakery, one laughed and said, "In this economy? Good luck." For a moment, doubt tried to creep in. But then she remembered Napoleon Hill's warning. Keep your goals and dreams close. Don't expose them to negative minds before they have taken root. From then on, Maya chose carefully who she shared her dreams with. She surrounded herself with believers, people who spoke possibility, not limitation. She learned that words from others can either water your dreams or wither them. So she protected her dream like a seedling, gently but fiercely. The shift within 6 months, her bakery, Sweet Rise, opened its doors. She had a small space, an old oven, and the biggest smile in Chicago. Every cupcake, every loaf of bread, every warm pastry she served was a symbol of her spoken faith. People often asked her, "How did you find the courage to start?" And she would smile and say, "I started speaking it before I believed it. And one day, I started believing it because I kept speaking it." That's the Napoleon Hill principle in action: belief born from repetition, words turning into willpower, willpower turning into results. A message to you: your words are seeds. Every time you say, "I can't," you plant weeds of doubt. Every time you say, "I will," you plant trees of confidence. Choose your words like a gardener chooses what to grow. Speak about your future as if it's already happening. Say it out loud. Write it down. Declare it to yourself every morning. Because your mind is always listening, and it will build whatever you tell it to. Napoleon Hill said, "Tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it." That showing begins with speaking, and the moment you speak like success is certain, the world begins to listen. White heavy check mark. End of part 2. Speak like success is already yours. Next, part 3. Take the first step, even when you're afraid. Would you like me to continue with part 3, 1000 words? Take the first step even when afraid. Story in the same Napoleon Hill, inspired tone. Next. Part 3. The Rhythm of Winner's Hook. When Jake first sat at the dusty piano in his grandmother's living room, he didn't know that those uneven keys would one day teach him the greatest secret to success. Not just in music, but in life itself. Jake had always dreamed of becoming a great pianist. But like most dreamers, his excitement came and went in waves. Some days he practiced for hours. Other days he'd skip because he was tired, busy, or simply not in the mood. Weeks passed, then months, and though he had talent, his progress was painfully slow. One rainy morning, his grandmother found him staring at the piano, frustrated. "Grandma," he sighed. "Maybe I'm just not cut out for this." She smiled gently. "Jake, let me tell you a story about Beethoven." Jake perked up. He had heard the name but didn't know much beyond the famous tunes. "Beethoven practiced every single morning before breakfast," she said. "Rain or shine, tired or full of energy, he showed up. Every day. That's what made him great. He didn't wait for motivation, he built discipline. He made practice as natural as breathing." Those words stuck with Jake. That night, he made a promise to practice every single day, even for just 15 minutes. No excuses. The first week was easy. The second week was harder. But something strange began to happen around week 3. His fingers started moving more smoothly. The melodies flowed easier. His hands remembered what his mind once struggled to recall. Jake realized that daily practice wasn't just improving his music, it was training his mind to stay consistent, even when he didn't feel like it. It became automatic, like brushing his teeth. He didn't debate it, he just did it. He hung a small calendar on the wall and marked a red X on each day he practiced. Soon, a chain of 10 red marks stared back at him. He didn't want to break it. That visual streak became his silent motivator. But even with progress, doubts still visited Jake. One evening, he played for a few friends. Some laughed when he hit a wrong note. "Dude, why do you even bother? You're not going to be a real musician," one said. The laughter stung. That night, Jake almost skipped his practice. He stared at the piano, anger and embarrassment burning inside. Then he remembered something his grandmother once told him. "The people around you can either lift you up or pull you down. Choose believers, not doubters." So, Jake made another promise, to surround himself with believers. He joined a local music club where others were learning too. Unlike his old friends, these people celebrated progress, not perfection. When someone played a new song, everyone clapped. When someone made mistakes, they encouraged them to keep going. One of the older members, Mr. Harris, noticed Jake's passion. "Keep showing up," Mr. Harris told him. "Talent opens the door, but discipline walks through it." Those words became Jake's new fuel. Surrounded by people who believed in him, Jake's confidence grew. He realized how powerful the right circle could be, just like the Wright brothers, who believed in each other when the world said humans would never fly. Jake found strength in shared belief. Months passed, and Jake's skills improved. But one problem remained: he never felt like he was good enough. He compared himself to great pianists online and often felt small, until one day, Mr. Harris stopped him mid-complaint. "Jake," he said, "you're chasing the mountain and missing the steps beneath your feet. You must celebrate the small wins. That's how you build momentum." That night, Jake tried something new. He played a song he'd been struggling with for weeks. This time, he made it through, not perfect, but better than ever. He smiled for the first time in a while and whispered, "That's progress." He wrote in his journal, "Win number 17, played full song without stopping. Felt confident." From then on, Jake celebrated every small victory, every new chord, every clean run. Every day he showed up. He treated progress like fuel, not something to overlook. He didn't wait for the final goal to feel proud. He learned to celebrate the journey. But as time went on, the journey got tougher. His college workload increased. He got a part-time job. Some nights, he was exhausted. The excitement that once fueled him was fading. He thought about quitting. After all, who would notice if he stopped? Then he remembered Beethoven again. He remembered the Wright brothers. He remembered his grandmother's words. "Winners keep going when others quit." He looked at the calendar, 83 red XS. "Not today," he whispered. Even when he was tired, he played. Even when he didn't feel like it, he practiced 5 minutes. Some nights, he only managed scales. But he never broke the chain. And something magical happened. He discovered that persistence is the bridge between average and great. When others quit, he kept moving. That's when progress became transformation. A year later, Jake sat on stage at a small community concert. His hands trembled slightly as he faced the audience. When the spotlight hit his piano, he took a deep breath and smiled. He remembered every moment, the tired nights, the small wins, the setbacks, the believers who stood by him. Then he played. The room filled with music that came not just from his fingers, but from his heart, the sound of discipline, belief, celebration, and persistence. When he finished, the crowd stood to applaud. His grandmother, sitting in the front row, wiped a tear from her eye. Jake had finally learned the truth Napoleon Hill once wrote about. The man who does more than he is paid for will soon be paid for more than he does. Because Jake had done more, not for applause, but for growth. His daily practice built his discipline. His believers built his faith. His small wins built his confidence. And his persistence built his success. Lesson of the story: success is not built in one big moment. It is built in the small, ordinary, daily choices you keep, especially when you don't feel like it. Be consistent like Jake. Surround yourself with believers. Celebrate every small step. And when others quit, keep going. Because those who persist when it's hardest are the ones the world remembers. Would you like me to continue with Part 4, the next story in Napoleon Hill style? Part 4, The Invisible Bridge of Faith. Hook. When Sarah lost everything she'd worked for, everyone told her to give up. But one quiet morning, as the sun rose through her dusty window, she discovered something far more powerful than luck: faith in the unseen. Sarah was a small-town entrepreneur with big dreams. She'd built her own bakery from scratch. Just her, an old oven, and a head full of hope. Her cupcakes were famous in her neighborhood. People said she had the magic touch. But then came the storm. Literally, a sudden flood tore through the town one night, destroying everything. Her shop, her equipment, even her recipe books. In one night, years of hard work were gone. The next morning, Sarah stood in front of the ruins. The smell of wet flour and broken dreams filled the air. Tears rolled down her face. "Maybe this is a sign," she whispered. "Maybe it's time to quit." Her neighbor, Mr. Carter, a retired carpenter, walked over and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Sarah," he said, "a storm can destroy your shop, but it can't destroy your vision. That's inside you. You can rebuild, if you believe you can." Those words felt heavy but powerful. "Believe I can," she thought. Faith had always sounded like a nice idea, something for church on Sundays, not for surviving real-life disaster. But she remembered something she once read from Napoleon Hill. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. That night, sitting in the quiet darkness, Sarah closed her eyes. She tried to see her bakery again, the smell of warm bread, the sound of laughter, the smiles of happy customers. She pictured her hands kneading dough, her oven glowing again. At first, it felt foolish. But the more she practiced this mental picture, the more real it felt. It wasn't magic. It was faith, the invisible bridge that connects imagination to action. The next morning, she borrowed a friend's kitchen and baked a small batch of cookies. Then she posted a photo online. "Sarah's bakery is coming back soon, one cookie at a time." People started commenting. "We miss your cupcakes. Can we order some?" Within days, she was delivering homemade cookies from her car. Each morning, she repeated her new ritual. She visualized her bakery rebuilt. She wrote her goals on paper. She acted as if success was already on the way. Faith was no longer just belief, it became a habit. One morning, when she was feeling tired and doubting again, Mr. Carter stopped by. He handed her a small, carved wooden sign that said, "Build it in your mind before you build it in the world." That message lit a fire inside her. Every night, she imagined the new bakery. Brighter, bigger, better. She could almost feel the counter beneath her hands and smell the coffee brewing. This mental movie became her secret power. It gave her strength when money was short and motivation ran low. While others saw obstacles, she saw the invisible bridge, the one faith builds between where you are and where you want to be. Months passed, and Sarah kept going. Some days were exhausting. Orders were small. Rent was due, her friends told her. "It's too hard. Maybe this just isn't meant to be." But she remembered Napoleon Hill's lesson. Most people quit when success is just around the corner. So, she persisted. Every night, she wrote down 3 things she had done right. Small wins. One day, it was found a cheaper supplier. Another day, sold 10 cupcakes. Each note became a seed of belief. Sarah started meeting other small business owners. They shared ideas, helped each other find customers, and offered encouragement. She realized something powerful: faith grows faster when shared. When you surround yourself with believers, your own faith multiplies. One day, she received a message from a local community center. "Would you like to cater our event next month?" She almost cried. It was her biggest opportunity yet. For 3 weeks, she worked tirelessly, baking, decorating, planning. The night before the event, her oven broke down. Panic hit her like a wave. "Not again!" she shouted, gripping the counter. She felt her faith slipping away. Then she remembered something from Hill's book that her grandmother once quoted. "Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit." She took a deep breath. There's got to be a way. She called Mr. Carter, who helped her fix the oven overnight. They worked until dawn, covered in flour and laughter. At sunrise, she baked the final batch of cupcakes, perfectly golden. The event was a success. People loved her desserts. By the end of the day, a restaurant owner approached her with a proposal. "How would you like to sell your baked goods at our cafe?" Sarah could hardly believe it. The bridge she had been walking, step by step, day by day, had finally reached the other side. A year later, Sarah stood in front of her brand new bakery. The sign above the door read, "Sarah's Bakery, built with faith." She had rebuilt everything she lost, but this time, she was stronger, wiser, and unshakable. The town celebrated her grand reopening. During her speech, she said, "I lost everything once, except my faith. And that faith became the foundation of everything I've built today." When you believe in something before you see it, the universe starts to move mountains for you. The crowd cheered, but Sarah just smiled quietly. She knew the real victory wasn't just a bakery. It was what she had built inside herself. Lesson of the story: faith is not wishing. It's not hoping. It's knowing, deep down, that what you imagine is already possible. It's believing in the unseen until it becomes seen. You don't need perfect circumstances or lucky breaks. You need vision, persistence, and the courage to keep believing when no one else does. Because as Napoleon Hill said, "There are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge." So remember Sarah's story. When life floods your plans and leaves you standing in ruins, close your eyes and build again, not with your hands, but with your belief. The invisible bridge of faith will carry you farther than fear ever could. Part 5. The Mountain That Moved. Hook. Ethan stood at the foot of the mountain with a backpack full of hope and a heart full of fear. Everyone said the climb was impossible, but he wasn't here to listen to them. He was here to prove that persistence could move mountains. Ethan had always been an ordinary man with extraordinary dreams. He worked as a mechanic in a small town, fixing other people's engines but never quite getting his own life moving. For years, he talked about starting his own repair shop. He had plans drawn out, a name picked, Ethan's Auto Care. But that's where it stopped. He always had a reason to wait. Not enough money. Not enough time, not the right moment. Then one day, his boss told him the company was shutting down. Just like that, Ethan was out of a job. He went home, sat at the kitchen table, and stared at his calloused hands. For the first time, there were no more excuses, no job to hide behind, no plan B. He remembered a quote he'd read years ago from Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. "The moment you make a definite decision and act, the universe begins to conspire in your favor." Ethan took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "I will start my shop. I don't know how, but I will." That night, he wrote down a list of everything he would need: tools, a small workspace, and at least $5,000 to get started. It looked impossible, but for the first time, his goal felt real. The next morning, he made a bold move. He went door to door, offering to fix neighbors' cars in their driveways for a small fee. At first, people hesitated. But Ethan smiled, spoke with confidence, and did his best work. Word spread. Within a few weeks, he was fixing 3 or 4 cars a day. He saved every dollar he could. No restaurants, no new clothes, no nights out. Just work, savings, and faith. But soon, reality hit back. One rainy evening, while driving to a client's house, his old pickup truck broke down. The repairs cost most of his savings. His tools got stolen from the back of the truck that same week. It felt like the world was testing him. Ethan sat alone in his tiny apartment, his heart pounding with frustration. "Maybe I'm not meant for this," he muttered. Then he remembered something his grandfather used to say. When life throws dirt at you, use it to plant something. He realized he had a choice: quit or persist. Napoleon Hill had written, "Every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage." So Ethan decided to look for the seed. He went back to the homes of his early customers and explained what had happened. Instead of pity, he found support. One man gave him an old toolbox he didn't use anymore. Another offered to lend him garage space for a month. With every act of kindness, Ethan's hope grew stronger. He realized that persistence wasn't about never falling. It was about getting up one more time than you fall. So he got up. Each morning, he woke at 5 a.m., worked on cars, and spent nights studying business skills online. He made mistakes, lots of them, but he learned from each one. Every no became fuel for the next yes. A few months later, Ethan entered a local business grant contest. He prepared his proposal carefully, a small-town repair shop with affordable service and honest work. When he handed it in, his hands were shaking. He had no fancy degree, no big investors, just determination and belief. Weeks passed without an answer. Then one morning, an email arrived. He opened it with trembling fingers. "Congratulations, Ethan. You've been selected to receive a $5,000 small business grant." Tears filled his eyes. The same number he had written down on paper months ago, the same number that once felt impossible, was now real. He could almost hear Hill's voice whispering, "Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve." Ethan rented a tiny garage on the edge of town and hung up a sign, "Ethan's Auto Care, honest work, fair prices." The first few weeks were slow. Sometimes no one came. Sometimes he sat alone, wondering if this was a mistake. But he refused to quit. Every slow day, he used to practice persistence, cleaning tools, improving systems, calling potential clients. When business was quiet, he would say to himself, "Someone else might quit today, but not me." And little by little, his consistency built momentum. Customers loved his honesty. Word spread again, this time faster. He hired his first assistant 6 months later. One evening, a man came in with a fancy car and a serious engine problem. Ethan worked all night fixing it. When he finished, the man smiled and handed him a business card. "I'm a regional manager at a fleet company," he said. "We need someone reliable to handle our maintenance. Would you be interested?" Ethan could barely speak. That one connection turned his small-town garage into a growing business within a year. The same people who once said, "You're wasting your time," now asked for advice. A year later, Ethan stood outside his busy shop, looking at the line of cars waiting for service. His old pickup truck, the same one that once broke down on him, now sat proudly repainted beside the shop as a reminder. A young apprentice asked him one day, "Ethan, how did you keep going when everything went wrong?" He smiled and said, "Because quitting never builds anything. Every time I thought I'd reached my limit, I reminded myself that the mountain only moves for those who keep climbing." He paused, then added, "Most people stop digging 3 feet before they hit gold. I just kept digging." The lesson of the story: persistence is the heartbeat of success. Dreams are easy to imagine, but only those who keep going, long after the excitement fades, turn them into reality. Napoleon Hill said it best. "A quitter never wins, and a winner never quits." Every failure, delay, or disappointment is not a wall, it's a test. It asks you one question: how badly do you want it? Ethan's story reminds us that the secret isn't luck, talent, or perfect timing. It's the daily decision to keep moving forward, one small step at a time, no matter what. Final thought: when your dream feels impossible, remember Ethan's words. The mountain only moves for those who keep climbing. Keep climbing, your summit might be one more step away. Would you like me to continue with part 6, final part, where everything comes together with a powerful Napoleon Hill style conclusion and a motivational call to action? Subscribe, share, and comment. Part 6. The Fire Within. Becoming Unstoppable Hook. Some people wait for life to hand them an opportunity. Others create one with their own 2 hands. The real winners, the ones who rise again and again, carry a fire inside them that never goes out. This final story is about that fire. It was late evening when Clara sat alone in her tiny apartment, staring at the glow of her laptop screen. The email read, "We regret to inform you that your job application has been declined. It was the fifth rejection this month. Her dream was to work in digital design, to create art that inspired people. But every company said the same thing. Not enough experience. For weeks, she'd been caught between frustration and self-doubt. Her savings were running out, and fear whispered that maybe she wasn't good enough. That night, she closed her eyes and remembered something she had once underlined in a book by Napoleon Hill. Our only limitations are those we set up in our own minds. The words hit her like lightning. She realized she had been waiting for someone else to open a door, waiting for permission to start. But what if, she thought, I stopped waiting and acted like I couldn't lose? Clara opened her laptop again. But this time, not to look for jobs, to create. She began designing small graphics, logos, and posters for local businesses. At first, she offered her work for free, just to build her portfolio. Days turned into nights as she designed in her kitchen, coffee cup in one hand and determination in the other. Her first few designs were clumsy, but she kept improving. Each project, no matter how small, built her skill and confidence. Soon, one of her free clients referred her to a paying one. Then another. Her inbox began to fill, not with rejections, but with requests. But then, another test arrived. One of her biggest clients refused to pay for a completed project. It was months of work lost. Clara sat frozen in disbelief. All the old voices returned. You're not experienced enough. You can't make it on your own. She almost quit. Almost. But then, she thought of Thomas Edison, who failed thousands of times before inventing the light bulb. He once said, I did not fail 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Clara smiled softly. If he didn't give up, she whispered, neither will I. She made a new decision that night. Every setback would fuel her growth. Every problem would make her stronger. She created a rule for herself, the 24-hour rule. And no matter how big the disappointment, she allowed herself only one day to feel bad. After that, she had to take action. When people doubted her, she didn't argue. She let her work speak louder. When clients disappeared, she replaced them with better ones. When fear whispered, you can't, she replied, watch me. Slowly, her small freelance gigs turned into steady contracts. She started earning enough to move into a brighter apartment with a real workspace. One morning, she received a message that made her freeze. Clara, we've seen your work online. Would you be interested in designing for our company's new campaign? The email was from one of the same companies that had rejected her months ago. This time, they were asking her. She smiled, remembering Hill's quote. When you believe in yourself and persist, the world will eventually believe in you too. Clara accepted the offer, but on her terms. She wasn't applying for approval anymore. She was being invited as an expert. A year later, Clara stood on a stage at a creative conference, sharing her story. She looked out at hundreds of young designers with the same fear she once felt in their eyes. She said, when I stopped waiting for permission and started believing I could not lose, my whole world changed. Fear didn't disappear, it became fuel. The audience hung on every word. Your dream, she continued, won't come true because someone gives it to you. It comes true because you refuse to give up. You become unstoppable when you decide there's no turning back. After the event, a young man approached her. He looked nervous. Clara, he said softly, how do you keep going when you're scared all the time? She smiled and replied, courage doesn't mean you stop being scared. It means you move forward while you're scared. Every step you take builds your belief. Every failure is just a step closer to success. He nodded slowly, a new spark of hope in his eyes. That night, as Clara walked home through the cool city air, she thought about how far she had come. The rejections, the unpaid work, the fear, all of it had shaped her into someone unbreakable. She whispered to herself, everything I went through was preparing me for this moment. In her heart, she knew this was just the beginning, because the fire within her, the one that Napoleon Hill spoke about, was now burning brighter than ever. The moral of the story, success is not about luck. It's not about waiting for the right time, the right people, or the right opportunity. It's about belief plus persistence plus daily action. The people who win are not the smartest or the luckiest. They are the ones who keep moving, no matter how many times life knocks them down. They speak their dreams with confidence. They take the first step even when afraid. They practice their craft every day. They surround themselves with believers, and they never, ever stop climbing. Final message, Napoleon Hill. Style conclusion: the moment you decide that failure is not an option, life begins to shift in your favor. The universe respects bold hearts. Every thought you think, every word you speak, and every step you take sends a signal. I am ready for success. When your belief becomes stronger than your fear, you become unstoppable. So don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for confidence to appear. Start now. Act like losing isn't possible, because it isn't, as long as you never quit. Remember what Hill said. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Fire call to action. If Clara's story inspired you, if you're ready to walk through life like success is guaranteed, backhand index pointing right. Subscribe for more life-changing lessons inspired by Napoleon Hill. Speech alone. Comment below. What's one goal you'll start chasing today, no matter how scared you feel? Repeat button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to start. Because your belief could be the spark that lights someone else's fire. And together, we rise, one unstoppable dreamer at a time.